This lesson is on angle relationships. We're going to talk about different types of angles and how they can combine with each other and what their relationships are to each other. The first one we're going to talk about is adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are angles that have a common vertex inside but no interior points. So they have that common vertex inside. So if we're talking about adjacent angles, if we have A, B, C, and D, then we're looking at ABD and DBC are adjacent angles. So number 1 and 2 are just identifying angles. So try those on your own and then we'll go over them. So looking at number 1, I want the angle that's adjacent to angle 3, which is right here. So I want one that has a common vertex and a common side, which would be this side right here. So that's going to be angle 1. And in number 2, I'm looking at angle ABD right here. And I need to find something that has a common side, which would be this right here. So I'd be looking at angle DBC. Now number 3 and 4. Number 3 says name the 2 angles adjacent to YZW. And number 4, name the angle adjacent to angle AFB. So go ahead and try those on your own and we will go over them. So looking at number 3, I'm looking at YZW, and there's going to be 2 different angles that share a vertex and a side. So the first one is going to be angle YZV, and the second one is going to be angle WZX or XZW. Doesn't really matter which way you write it. And then looking at number 4, we want one that's adjacent to AFB, and it's got to share the vertex and it's going to have to share this middle side here. So we're going to be looking at angle CFB or BCF. The next angles that we're going to talk about are complementary angles. Now, complementary angles just have a sum of 90 degrees. So if I want to illustrate that, 45 and 45, they can combine to make a right angle. 30 and 60 would be another complementary pair. Anything that adds up to 90. So in number 1, if angle H and angle J are complementary, find angle J. I want you to try that on your own. So if we use 28 degrees for angle H, what would it be its complement? All right, so when we look at that, we know that all together they have to equal 90. So 28 plus x has to equal 90. I'm going to subtract 28 from both sides. So then x has to equal 62. So angle J equals 62 degrees. Number 2 is just asking you to identify angles. So go ahead and try that one on your own. And it wants complementary angles. Well, complementary angles have to add up to equal 90 degrees. So we're going to be looking at this right angle right here. And the two angles that make up that right angle are BFC and CFD. Now I want you to try number 3 and 4 on your own. I'm going to help you set up number 3. It's a little bit complicated. So I know that A plus B has to equal 90. So 7x plus 4 plus 4x plus 9 has to equal 90. So there's a hint to get you started. Now when I look at this and combine the like terms, I get 11x plus 13 equals 90. So then 11x equals 77 and x equals, so x equals 7. Now that's not the answer because I have to plug it back in to find angle A and angle B. So when I plug it back into angle A, I get 7 times 7 plus 4, which is 49 plus 4. So angle A equals 53. And angle B is 4 times 7 plus 9. So that's 28 plus 9. So that's 37. So angle B equals 37. Now, number 4 is a similar situation, but this one just asked us to find x instead of finding the angle measures. So I have 3x plus 8 plus 8x plus 5 equals 90 degrees. So I've got 11x plus 13 equals 90, and that's going to work out the same way as the other problem did. So here, x equals 7, and that's the actual answer this time because they just said to find the value of x. Now we're going to take a look at some supplementary angles. Now supplementary means that they add up or have a sum of 180. So an illustration might look like this. Those angles are going to add up together to equal 180. So I want you to try number 1 and number 2 on your own, and then we will go over them. So looking at number 1, if they're supplementary, I know that 132 plus x has to equal 180, and I'm going to subtract 132 from both sides. So I know that x is going to equal 48, so angle F is going to equal 48 degrees. Now number 2 just asked me to name 2 pairs of supplementary angles, and the way that I can do this is I can look at what's going to create a straight line. So DEF and FEH is a pair of supplementary angles. I can also look at that on the opposite side and say that DEG and GEH are supplementary. I could look at it here and say that GED and DEF. And I could also look at it on this side and say GEH and HEF. Those are all pairs of supplementary angles. Now let's look at number 3 and number 4. Those are very similar to the examples that we did in the complementary side. All right, so looking at number 3, I know that 3x minus 7 plus 2x plus 2 is going to have a sum of 180. So that's going to be 5x minus 5 equals 180. Add 5 to both sides. So 5x equals 185. If I divide by 5, x equals 37. Now I'm going to have to plug that in. So 3 times 37 minus 7 is going to give me 104 for angle A. And then for angle B, it would be 2 times 37 plus 2 gives me 76 for angle B. So angle A is 104 and angle B is 76. Sorry, that's kind of scrunched up right there. Let's get some more room for number 4. So with number 4, similar concept, I'm going to have 1/4 times 36x minus 8 plus 1/2 times 6x minus 20 equals 180. So that's 9x minus 2, because I have to distribute the 1/4, plus 3x minus 10, because I have to distribute the 1/2, equals 180. So 9x plus 3x is 12x minus 12 equals 180. So 12x equals 192. And if I divide by 12, x equals 16. However, it asked me to find the angle measures, not just x. So when I plug it back in, I'm going to have 1/4 times 36 times 16 minus 8. So 36 times 16 is 576 minus 8 is 568 times 1/4 is 142. And on the other side, I'm going to have 1/2 times 6 times 16 minus 20. 6 times 16 is 96 minus 20 is 76 times 1/2 is 38. And I can check my work because I know if I add those together, they'll equal 180 degrees. All right, now let's talk about vertical angles. Vertical angles are non-adjacent, but they share a vertex. So they share a vertex, but they don't share any sides. So an illustration would be these right here. These yellow angles that I've marked are vertical angles. They share that vertex and they're directly across from each other, but they don't have any shared sides. And vertical angles are going to be congruent. So they add up, or they equal each other. They don't have to add up to anything. So number 1 and number 2 just focus on naming vertical angles. So try those on your own. And then we'll go over them. So looking at number 1, it wants 2 pairs of vertical angles. So if I look at angle 1, the angle that would be vertical to that is angle 2. So angle 1 and angle 2 is one set. And then if I look at angle 4, its vertical angle would be angle 3. Number 2 wants the angle vertical with VZY, which is this angle right here. So I'm looking for the angle that's directly across from it. So that would be XZW. Now number 3 and number 4 are similar to the examples on the other slides with complementary and supplementary. So I want you to try those on your own, and then we will go over them. Remember that each one is only asking you to find the value of x. So when I look at number 3, I know that these are vertical angles, so they have to be congruent. So 7 plus 13x has to be equal to negative 20 plus 16x. The first thing I want to do here is get my variables on the same side using inverse operations. So I'm left with 7 equals negative 20 plus 3x. Then I'm going to move the 20. So I'm left with 27 equals 3x, divide by 3, and x equals 9. On the other side, I also know that those are on number 4. I know those are vertical angles. So I've got 2x plus 20 equals 3x plus 15. I'm going to get my variables on the same side. I'm left with 20 equals x plus 15. Get rid of that 15. So x equals 5. Now, had they asked me to find the angle measures, I would just have to plug in 5 for x. So this would be 2 times 5 plus 20. So that would be 10 plus 20, which is 30. Number 5 and number 6 are some similar problems, so I want you to try those on your own. Now, looking at number 5, it says that angle SOP is 5x and ROQ is 4x plus 10. And I know that those are vertical, so they're going to have to equal each other. So 5x equals 4x plus 10. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides, and x equals 10. Now, it didn't ask me for the variable. It asked me for the angle measures. So SOP is 5x, which is 5 times 10. So angle SOP is going to equal 50 degrees. Angle ROQ is 4x plus 10, so that's going to be 4 times 10 plus 10. That's also going to be 50. Now, I didn't have to do all that work because I know that if they're vertical angles, they're congruent. So I could have just solved for one of them. Now, number 6 is a little different because it's asking us to find all the missing angle measures. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the ones I know. So I know 41, so I'm going to find its vertical angle. And the one that's straight across from it that shares a vertex but no sides is going to be angle 3. So angle 3 is also going to be 41. Now I can look at my known angle number 72, and I know that its vertical angle is angle 1, so angle 1 has to be 71. Now I know that angle 3, angle 72, and angle 2 all have to be supplementary. They have to equal 180 degrees total. So I'm going to do 180 minus 41 minus 72, and that will give me angle 2. Because what I'm doing is I'm taking those angles that all equal 180, taking away the ones we've already used, and that will give me what's left over, and what's left over is going to be this angle 2 right here. So angle 2 is going to be 67. And then I know that angle 2 and angle 4 are vertical, so angle 4 also has to equal 67. Now we're going to look at some linear pairs, and linear pairs are just angles that come together to make a straight line, and they have to have a sum of 180 degrees because a straight line is 180 degrees. So number 1 and number 2 just focus on finding a simple measure and finding the linear pairs. So I want you to try those on your own, and then we'll go over them. So looking at number 1, I know that these have to be 180 degrees because they're linear. They create this straight line together. So 180 minus 138 is going to give me what's left over. So angle 2 is 48 degrees. And looking at number 2, some linear pairs, well, I know 5 and 6 come together to create a straight line. 5 and 7 also, 6 and 8, and 7 and 8 are all linear pairs. Now I want you to try number 3 and number 4 on your own. Now looking at number 3, I know that these are a linear pair, so they have to add up to equal 180. So 7x plus 20 plus 10 plus 5x, equals 180. So then 12x plus 30 equals 180. Subtract 30. 12x equals 150, divide by 12, and x equals 12.5. But that's not what they asked me for. What they asked me for was the angle measures. So when I'm looking at LMO, that's going to be 7 times 12.5 plus 20. So that's 87.5 plus 20, which is 107.5. And then for OMN, that's 10 plus 5 times 12.5. So 10 plus 62.5, so that's 72.5. And now we can look at number 4. So I've got 1/3 times 27x minus 6 plus 1/2 times 6x minus 20 equals 180 degrees. So that's 9x minus 2 plus 3x minus 10 equals 180. So 12x minus 12 equals 180. So then 12x equals 192 and x equals 16. And this one, all it asked me for was the value of x, so I'm good. And our last two examples, number 5 and number 6, are very similar, so I want you to try those on your own as well. So if I'm looking at SOP, that's right here, and SOR, which is right here, I know they are linear pairs, so they have to add up to equal 180. So 7y minus 12 plus 5y plus 12 has to equal 180. So that's 12y plus 0 equals 180. And if I divide by 12, y equals 15. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that back into each angle. So 7 times 15 minus 12 is going to give me 93 for SOP. And 5 times 15 plus 12 is going to give me 87 for SOR. Now over here it's the same thing. I'm going to have 4x plus 6 plus 11x minus 6 equals 180. So that's 15x plus 0 equals 180. So x equals 12. I'm going to plug it in for DAB, or DBA, excuse me. It's 4 times 12 plus 6. And that's going to give me 54. And for DBC, it's 11 times 12 minus 6. And that's going to give me 126 degrees. So as long as you remember your rules and you set these up correctly, it should be as simple as solving an equation. If you have any questions, make sure you write them down in your notebook and you're prepared for class tomorrow.